Today, President Obama is expected to meet with his top foreign policy advisors to discuss their military options as Syrian and Russian aircraft continue to pummel Aleppo. However, some top U.S. officials consider it unlikely that Obama will order strikes on Syrian government targets. Joining us right now is retired Army Lieutenant Colonel and author of The Damned of Petersburg, Ralph Peters. Good to see you, Colonel. Thanks so much for joining us.
Morning, Maria.
Your reaction to what's happening today, what is the biggest danger in this situation now?
Well, the biggest danger is actually that Obama tries to get another middle-of-the-road, get-off-cheap solution. If he tries to act in Syria, and the Russians and Putin lives up to his promise to shoot down American aircraft if we take action, I'm afraid that Obama would fold, that he just would absolutely just give up, and that would be absolutely devastating. So at the meeting today with his top advisors, Obama's real question is, what's the least I can do here? And the danger is, again, trying to find that weak middle ground. You're better off doing either nothing or going full bore and facing down the Russians. But trying to, as Obama always does, to modulate and get a nice answer in between that doesn't hurt anybody, that is the gravest danger, because Putin would eat us up.
You know, it's pretty incredible what Russia has been able to do.
Yes.
You know, they inserted themselves in this conflict in response to what was a crumbling economy as oil prices were plummeting. They went into Crimea. And, you know, Gary Kasparov has been on the show a number of times, James Freeman, and basically said, look, this guy, Vladimir Putin, needs to trade. That's his currency, war. Right. You know, so he needs to look like a big guy in front of the Russians, and this is how to do it. And now he's gone direct in conflict with the U.S.
And it's interesting, now that we're in this political season, all of a sudden the administration, Hillary Clinton, they care about Russia, or they're concerned about Russia. It seems like this has been years, Colonel, where there's a history here of the United States not responding when Putin has been going into Ukraine, Crimea, I mean, and now here he is in Syria.
Well, Putin, again, he's playing this weak hand so absolutely brilliantly and bluffing us, but he's got a willing tool in Barack Obama. And Obama is so weak and has been so trusting of Putin, so trusting of his ability to charm, that we have Putin's country. It's a bankrupt country filled with AIDS, tuberculosis, and failure, 11 time zones of nothing, a military that's got a core that's pretty competent, but the greater military is incompetent, and Russia's cleaning our clocks. And, you know, Putin is also not just using the military aggressively in Ukraine, of course, and Syria, but he knows how to use subversion. He knows how to use threats. He knows how to bribe. And that's a real art form, the way he's bribed European political parties. And now, tragically, we've got one presidential candidate associated with a failed Russian policy and another presidential candidate who's got a man crush on Vladimir Putin. God help us all. You know?
Is that really the political solution? Because, Colonel, it's Dagen, by the way. What happens when the next president takes office? Because, again, you can't continue to ignore a growing, grave threat, can you?
Well, the sad thing is you can. You can ignore it for a long time until you get World War II. I mean, it's stunning to me that Obama, who pretends to be a humanitarian, who imagines he's a humanitarian, has watched this slaughter of up to 500,000 people literally without lifting a finger. But Obama, the key to understanding him, and Putin understands it, is Obama is a fearful man. He doesn't think about what we can do to change things. Rather, he thinks about what might happen if we try to take any action at all. He takes counsel of his fears. And it's a travesty that the greatest superpower on earth, that admittedly cannot do everything, under Obama has not done anything.
Well, I mean, how much do you think this has to do with his legacy, though? I mean, he ran as Obama with the O as the little peace sign on the bumper stickers. Remember that? Didn't really turn out that way.
Well, no, it didn't. But of course it has to do with his legacy. But also, I think, and frankly, I've used this word before, it has to do with cowardice. Moral cowardice and physical cowardice. I am not a believer that everything has a military solution. I'm not a bomb them to the ends of the earth kind of guy. But if you use our military, when it is appropriate, when you are compelled to send our forces abroad, you've got to use them decisively. You've got to mean it. You've got to want to win. Otherwise, you squander American lives. And I think, you've heard for many years that, oh, the American people are tired of war. The American people are tired of having their sons and daughters' lives wasted for political mediocrity.
Yeah. Well, in response to the 2 missiles that targeted a U.S. warship off the coast of Yemen on Sunday, the U.S. fired back at these Yemeni sites that allegedly belong to the Houthi alliance. Iran has deployed a fleet of warships now, and they're denying that the ships are going to intervene in the conflict. What is next? What's your take on all of that? Well,
just as Putin is calling our bluff on everything, so are the Iranians. Now, and this is an important point, Maria. If you really, as a former intelligence officer, I look at what happened with the exchange of missiles. The Houthi rebels, backed by Iran, do not have sophisticated anti-ship missiles. And if they had them, they wouldn't know how to use them. I am convinced that those missiles delivered by Iran were also fired by Iranian technicians. And what is our response? It's a Bill Clinton type response where you do as little as possible, fire some cruise missiles at rusty old radar stations, and declare victory. Meanwhile, Obama is pressuring the Saudis to stop attacking the Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen, and Iran is sending those ships to the Gulf, primarily, again, to call our bluff. But you cannot rule out the chance that Iran is so overconfident now that they might do something really desperate. So these are perilous, perilous times. And just as at the end of the Clinton presidency, Clinton was unwilling to respond to the attack on the USS Cole, which led in the next administration to 9/11.
Yeah.
I'm afraid that Obama's apathy, his lethargy now, is going to face the next president, whoever that may be, with a wave of crises.
Yeah.
Colonel, now that we're fighting what I guess you could almost call a proxy war against Iran in that region, can we declare the Obama-Clinton nuclear deal a failure now?
Well, to be fair, it's the Obama-Kerry nuclear deal. Well, it's dead, except that Obama keeps digging up the corpse and waving it around. I guess that's appropriate for Halloween coming up. But this nuclear, the problem with the Iran deal isn't just, the ultimate path to nukes. The core problem is it's paralyzed our foreign policy in the Middle East because President Obama will not do anything that might jeopardize the deal. So Iran runs wild, as Putin runs wild.
Even as they are taunting us in every which way. What do you make of this yesterday, late yesterday, we saw all these reports. Putin is ordering all Russian diplomats to, quote, bring relatives home to the motherland. Russian citizens are reacting with fear, saying this is another step toward war. Could they be right? I mean, why is he bringing all his people back and telling all diplomats to come back home right now?
2 reasons. One, he's a master of psychological warfare. And that's a traditional, on the eve of war, you call back your diplomats' families and the extra embassy staff. So it's a way Putin's trying to send a message to us that, oh, I'm really serious this time. But there's also a second reason. In the history of Russia, for centuries, it's gone back and forth between what they call westernizers, people who want to embrace Europe, and Slavophiles who believe that Russia has its own destiny. And Russia's almost always been a closed society. Even in the 19th century, Russian nobles had to have the Tsar's permission to go west to Europe. And so what Putin's trying to do is create this walled-off Russia. And those diplomats' kids and the others bringing back, they're the rising generation of insiders. And he doesn't care if they listen to Taylor Swift. He doesn't want them listening to Western ideas about freedom. Yeah. So essentially, Putin is trying to do a North Korea and wall off Russia. And by the way, just this morning, Putin has signed a deal with Syria for basically a permanent air base as well as a naval base. And the Russian Defense Department, their Pentagon, is again rattling the nuclear saber because they know Obama will back down every time.
Right. So he's further just punching the cage. Colonel, good to see you. Thanks so much, Colonel Peters.
Thank you,
and by
Maria.
the way, the point that you were making, James, obviously Clinton, Obama, they know Putin has schooled them. So he's a perfect scapegoat to say, oh, yeah, he's in Donald Trump's pocket. And oh, yeah, they're hacking us. And they're, Russia is the big story here with Donald Trump, which is just a narrative that they've created.
Right. And obviously they want to change the subject from the content of those emails to how they came to be public. But I think there's also, you're going to see more focus maybe in the next few days on the Clinton connections with Russia. And it's going to make it, I think, a tougher sell when people examine that to believe that she is tough on Putin.
You mean with the WikiLeaks?
The WikiLeaks,
Yeah,
I mean, and obviously we've already seen her uranium deal. I shouldn't call it her uranium deal. It's the backers of the Clinton Foundation's uranium deal that ended up with Russia controlling so much of that important commodity.
She okayed the sale of 25% of the U.S.'s uranium around the time that how much money was given to the Clinton Foundation.
Like
Well, it's millions.
million,
And what's
$145 million.
What was interesting was much of it not disclosed. She broke her promise to the Obama administration.
Coming up, a chilly reception for pumpkin beer, why the fall craze may be fading for brewers next.